Daniel Dubois, he's got his hands full on the 3rd of December. They're overlooking me. They're trying to look past me. On the 3rd of December, I'm taking your belt away in front of your fans at Tottenham, and the UK is going to be my new home.
My name is Andrew Smith. All right, guys, welcome to the Successful Smitty podcast. I got an awesome guest here today. His name's Kevin Lerena. You might have heard of him before. He's pretty big in the boxing world. He is a South African boxer who's a top 10 contender in the heavyweight division. He's got a record of 28-1. He is also a 7-time IBO World Champion and has a super exciting fight coming up here shortly on December 3rd against Daniel Dubois as the co-main events for the WBA World Title. So, Kevin, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate it. Sorry it's taken so long, but
yeah, no worries.
Eventually here.
Yeah, glad we got you on. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself, like how you got started with boxing, all that kind of stuff.
You know, obviously, South Africa is a very different place, as you know, and I was trying to find myself. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to play professional rugby or whether I wanted to be a professional boxer, but obviously I was afforded the opportunity to get to a good boxing gym and to learn the trade. And obviously just things took off and my trainer saw a bit of potential and talent in me. And I've got the same trainer that saw me from when I was just a kid, who's been with me right up until now. So it's just been a lifelong dream. And obviously to get to this point, it's taken a lot of hard work and sacrifice. But at the end of the day, I've always wanted to be a fighter and the prize fighter, more importantly.
Mm-hmm. Well, so how old were you when you started?
I wasn't that young. I only started boxing at about 16 years old.
Oh wow!
But I turned professional at 18, so I turned pro relatively young. So the first 5 to 6 years of my career was all learning, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first fight, as far as the emotions that you felt, and I guess kind of how you handled it back then compared to how you handle it now?
You know, somebody asked me that question the other day, and I can kind of remember my first professional fight, but it was such a blur. It was so quick, you know. So I know the emotions. There's a lot of nerves, a lot of stress, but the fight itself was a complete blur. It was absolutely surreal.
Dang, that's awesome. Wait, so did you, when you first started, did you expect to go as far as you have in boxing? Or was it just kind of let's just see where this goes? Or maybe I'm just doing it for fun at the moment?
No, I always wanted to be successful in the sport, but I know how hard the sport is. You know, boxing is a very, very hard sport. It's very hard to make it. It's an individual sport. And, you know, there's a certain level of guys at the top, and then there's a whole heap of guys at the bottom who are trying to make it to the top. So I've always been real with myself, and I knew how hard boxing was, but I always had that dream. But you know, so does everybody else have the dream. So you got to kind of make it happen. And I just worked really hard, to be honest. And I think it's a very cliche thing to say, is I worked hard, because everybody works hard, right? Mm-hmm. But I think I applied my skills in the right way. I picked the right fights, and obviously, look, you got to be able to fight to get to the top. But I think my career was managed relatively well up until this point to get this big shot.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So what is your, I guess, your all-time goal for boxing? I'm guessing be the heavyweight champion, I'm sure, is a big part of that.
Yeah, of course. You know, being a cruiserweight champion, not to take anything away from the cruiserweight division, but it's just not the heavyweight division, you know. The heavyweight division is the glamour division, the big boys, the legends of the sport that they talk about are heavyweights. You know, for a long time, the lighter went away from the heavyweights and was focused on the smaller guys. That's kind of over now. Everyone's still back focusing on the heavyweights. The heavyweight game is the game where it's the glamour division. So to become heavyweight world champion and to win the WBA world title will be amazing. But then there's other big fights out there. You know, if you look at all the heavyweights in the top 10, I'm in the top 20 now. So if you look at all the guys in the top 10, they're all big names. You got the American guys, Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz, Louis Ortiz, Joshua Wilder, Chisora, Daniel Dubois, And then, then there's us who are trying to get into that top 10. So this is going to be great for me. This is a lifelong dream. I'm co-main event to Tyson Fury at Tottenham Stadium. So it's pretty surreal. I mean, I'm sure you've heard a bit about South Africa. We are a country that's very overlooked in terms of individual sports, especially boxing. So the fact that I've got this far is an achievement on its own, but I'm not stopping yet. I want to go on and become the WBA World Champion.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited for you and to see how far you go in your career and everything, man. I bet you can do it.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, listen, man, we need supporters. Boxing or just sport and life in general is filled with a lot of hate and negativity. So the most support we can get, we appreciate it. So I appreciate that, and thank you.
Yeah, of course. Did you have, like, growing up, like a boxer that you looked up to, or maybe it was like an athlete outside of boxing that was kind of like your hero?
Growing up and the last like 8 to 10 years, I've really, in terms of boxing, I've always admired Mike Tyson's style because I got a very similar style to him. Yeah, Peekaboo, exactly that. Evander Holyfield, who was a cruiserweight who went up to heavyweight. But then there's an athlete from America. His name's JJ Watt, and he's a terrific athlete. He's an NFL player. Yeah. And I love the way he was such a phenomenal athlete and a good human being. So he's somebody that's also inspired me as an athlete. I mean, he probably wouldn't know this. He doesn't maybe watch boxing, but he's somebody that I watch NFL, and I watched him from when he was a rookie right through to where he is now. And he was kind of overlooked at that rookie phase, and he went on to become a defensive end player of the year in the NFL, So it shows you that hard work and the perseverance, but and just like working hard, and if you want something, you can achieve it. So he's also a pretty inspiring guy that I looked up to.
That's awesome. Yeah, Mike Tyson, I don't know if Tam's talked to you about how much I love him, but he's kind of like Kobe Bryant. Yeah, him and Kobe Bryant are like my top two biggest heroes of all time. Really? But right now, especially Mike Tyson, I love him, like that guy. And more than just for his fighting, like I feel like I got into him more just because of his wisdom. Like, that guy is so smart.
Exactly. And he's walked the road, like the road of life. So that's one guy, like, I'd love to, in my whole time as a professional athlete, if I get the opportunity to meet him, just to sit with him and just talk to him, just to pick his brain, because like you said, he's so wise.
Yeah, he's like my all-time dream guest for the podcast. But
and that's the thing, man. You got to dream these things. It's about getting those type of people on, those A-listers, those influential people, and Mike Tyson's a great, and like you said, his boxing career was one thing, but how he's turned his career around and how much wisdom and like his podcast and how much he's doing for people now is amazing. So good on you.
He's got an awesome podcast, The Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson. I've listened to probably like 100 episodes of it. It's just constant wisdom and funny stories, and I love it, man. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about your training and stuff. What does your whole like training regime look like each day?
So look, every day is different. Part of the camp, every day is different, but pretty much boxing Monday to Saturday or Monday to Friday. Then I've got running on the same days, and strength and conditioning, and then obviously with the boxing is sparring and technical work. So the sessions I'm putting in about, at the moment with this phase of camp, there's about 10 to 12 sessions a week. 10 to 12 training sessions a week within 5 days. Some days I put 3 a day, some days only 1 a day, some days 2 a day. So it all depends, Like if I spar a hard 12 rounds today, I'm not going to do another session this evening because my body needs to recover. But the next day I'll put in a run, a boxing, and a strength and conditioning. So it all depends on what phase of camp we're in. But we're working hard and we're leaving no stone unturned.
Heck yeah. That's awesome, man. Wait, so like how many hours per week would you say it is?
I can tell you now, so probably about like 12 to 15 hours a week. Because some sessions are an hour and a half, some only 45 minutes, some hour, and some 2 hours. Sometimes we put like an hour and 50 minutes in on the boxing gym. So about 12 to 15 hours a week of training.
And then that's not even taking into account like all the recovery and stuff you probably have to do, right?
Yeah. Like I said, when you're putting the body through all that hard grind and grinding hard, you need to kind of recover. So like, it might be only a small percentage that it helps you, but it all adds up, you know. So the ice baths, the saunas, the restoration, the meditating, this downtime, so important. But sleep's the most important thing. So I try, like now it's like 8:15. By 9:30, like I'm like, the lights are out, you know, normally. So I try to get a good 8 to 10 hours sleep. Sometimes I don't get the full 8 hours because I can be a restless sleeper, but I try to focus a lot on recovery because this helps me going into the next session. You know, tomorrow I got a big running block tomorrow, so a good night's rest will put me in good nick for tomorrow, so I can smash the 2 sessions out the way tomorrow.
Yeah, sleep is definitely super important. I don't know if Tam told you, I was a swimmer in college. Me and her, that's how we met, as we swam in college together. And I remember I was always making sure I had to get at least like a minimum of around 7.5 hours of sleep, or in the mornings I feel so bad at those like 5 a.m. practices and stuff.
It's hard, but your body kind of gets used to it, you know. It's like it becomes routine. I think once you do something 21 times, it's like a habit,
right?
You know. So just keep smashing it out. Sleep is the biggest challenge, though, for me. I mean, you know, sometimes your mind's so busy, especially in these big fights or big competitions or whatever it is on your side. If your mind's continuously working, it's very difficult to just switch off so easy. So I try like put the phone away for like at least 45 minutes before I go to bed, just to try and limit out any disturbances, you know. But it's never perfect, you know. Some nights I get only 7 hours, some nights 6.5, some nights 8.5. So it all depends. But I track my sleep quite a bit. I monitor my heart rate. You spoke about those small things. I monitor my heart rate. I can immediately see as I wake up what my heart rate's at. If it's slightly elevated, that's a rest day. It means my body's under unnecessary stress. Cortisol levels are high. Body needs to rest. But I've got a good conditioning coach, a good boxing head coach, and we try our best to be as professional as possible.
Dang, that's really interesting. I didn't know that about the heart rate thing. Like if you wake up and it's a little bit elevated, that means you need more recovery.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you you got a good baseline, right? So every morning as you open your eyes, if your heart rate's at like 43, for example, 44, 43, 44, but I wake up tomorrow morning and it's at 49, 50, it means my body's still under stress and I haven't recovered. It means either you kind of maybe fighting an infection, you could be getting sick, or you're just not recovered due to the training load. Then you need to kind of bring yourself back and say, like, look, maybe not take off, but instead of having a 3-a-day, just put in 1 session and see your heart rate the next day. If it's still elevated, 9 out of 10 times you could be coming down with something. You could be getting sick. And I monitor my heart rate a lot. Like I sleep with my Garmin on all the time, as irritating as it is. It's just a good indicator, you know, it's baselines. I know when I'm fit, I know when I'm super fit, and I know when my body's a bit off. So it's very important.
Yeah, that's a really neat stat. I have to take that into account and stuff whenever I do my training and things like that.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's very tedious, but I think it's a good baseline. I mean, everybody's got a heart rate. Everybody will know what they're resting in as they wake up, right? So if you, for hypothetically speaking, if you wake up and your heart rate's 44 tomorrow morning, and the next day 45, and the next day 44, and the next day 46, but the next day you wake up and it's 51, something's wrong. Or something sparked you up, you know. There's something that's not recovered. Your heart's under a bit of stress. It's pumping more. The cardiac output's increased because the body's not recovering. Listen to your body. Most important thing.
Well, it's like you said, I mean, it's like the little things that you do over like a long period of time that make the biggest difference. So
of course. And I think that's been the biggest part of my success, or getting to this point, because I still feel my success hasn't come to an end. I still got so much more I want to achieve. It's just paying attention to detail. You know, everybody, like, you know, everybody swims well. There's top swimmers in the world, Michael Phelps, Chad Leclerc, all those guys, they all work hard. But it's like the attention to detail. In the boxing, Tyson Fury's, Deontay Wilder's, Joshua's, they all work hard. We all train hard. We all put in the work. But like, it's the small things, you know. So I try to be as professional in the small things as are the big things. So as much as a big 12-round sparring session, well, it's just as important to recover well after that sparring session and go into the session the next day feeling good. You know, so just small things like that. And I feel it's been a major part of my success and that mental strength, you know, is knowing that I really leave no stone unturned. I try my best to be as professional as possible.
What does it look like for you the day before a fight or like the night before? Like, what does that look like for you?
Very chilled. I try to keep it as relaxed as possible because obviously, there's a lot of build-up, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of anticipation, there's a lot of nerves.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to do things that switch my mind off the fight. I try not to think about the fight. I try to spend my time with my close friends and family, keep my mind off the fight, and then obviously getting good food, good sleeping food. So foods that are wholesome, but foods that help you sleep better. Because sometimes if you eat a bit light, and you're still hungry, you're not going to sleep well. So I try to eat the foods that are like make you feel, those like foods that put you in a coma and you sleep.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of foods like you have a little bit, not too much. Like I don't eat that much red meat, but the day before a fight, I'll have like maybe 100 grams of a lean steak because it's heavy, but it makes you sleep. It makes your body tired, and that's your ability to sleep and recover through the nights. And then I'm spending time with my family, and I just switch off. I kind of like almost switch off from the fight. I don't like to think about the fight the day before because all the work's been done in the 10 weeks leading up to the fight, right? So I try to switch off so my body can get that rest. The biggest thing is kind of having that switch because otherwise you will lie in bed and you'll be just looking at the ceiling because your mind's continuously playing. What's going to happen? What's he going to throw at you? What if he does this? What if I do that? And then you end up, you look at your heart rate, you're at like 85 because your mind, you know what I mean? So you just kind of switch off. And that's the biggest thing for me.
What about like dealing with the pressure? Like let's say you're walking into the boxing ring and like I'm sure that's when probably you have like the most emotions right before you get into the ring of like, okay, it's about to go down, like there's a whole crowd cheering, like they just said my name, and then like, okay, it's about to be like life or death here in this ring. Like how do you handle all that pressure walking in?
It's like everything is a build up getting to that point. So like you get to that big point, there's a build up, and then boom, the ring walk's there and you go to war, you go in a fight. There's no turning back now. I always remind myself everything I've worked for this moment, but stay in the moment. I always say to myself, it's for this moment, but stay in the moment. No matter what, I block out the noise, block out all the noise, because at the end of the day, it's just you and the man in front of you. Because if you allow that noise and that hype to work against you, it's the worst thing you can do. You waste unnecessary energy, and also it can get in your head. So I just try to channel that focus of what am I doing for? What's my reason? When I step into the ring, it's me versus the man opposite me.
I like that. I kind of gave me goosebumps a little bit. That was awesome.
Yeah, man, that's what I do. I mean, some guys like to thrive off that hype, but I kind of like stay in the moment, block all the noise out. The man in front of me is trying to take the food off my table, and I don't want to allow that.
Right, exactly. What do you feel like is the biggest lesson that you've learned through boxing?
Patience. Patience. It's very different to team sports. I think NFL players, rugby players, soccer, football players, they get a contract, they work hard, they get the contract, and they play it out. Hopefully some of them, play it out. They go to training every day, they compete on the weekends, and they play the contract out. Boxing is very cutthroat in a sense of sometimes you don't know when you're going to get that fight. You don't have a monthly contract. You rely from fight to fight, and you got to work hard to get to the pinnacle.
Right.
And sometimes along the way, you're going to stumble. Like a swimmer can lose a race and it might be career changing for him. A boxer loses a fight. It's the loss is on your record for eternity, and it can be career changing. A football team loses, well, the fans are upset, and unless it's a Super Bowl final, they're going to go back to training on Monday, fix their problems, and go win the following week and be heroes again. And that's the true difference between individual sports and team sports. It's a very fickle sport, boxing, because 1 minute you're up and the next minute you're down. I'm not saying team sports aren't like that, but what I'm saying is there's less room for error in boxing, because to make it to the top is so hard and you can't afford any errors.
And also, I mean, like, it's not like you have necessarily a team, like you're the one who's in the ring, like fighting. Obviously you have your trainers and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's you that's making every decision, throwing every punch, things like that. And so you're basically more responsible for your results. It's not like, oh, it's because this guy didn't do his part, or or that guy wasn't blocking to protect the quarterback. It's like, no, this is all on me. Like either I did what I was supposed to or I didn't.
100%. And then listen, I'm not talking down on team sports. I love all sports. What I'm saying is, you're in the ring. It's a team to get you there. So you've got a collective team effort to get you into that position. But when you're fighting for your team, because as long as you're winning, your team's winning. When you lose, your team loses, and you lose as a person more so than anyone. So you're always carrying not just yourself, you're carrying your team, you're carrying the nation on your shoulders, your country.
Right.
So it's different, it's hectic. There's a lot of pressure, but how you deal with that pressure is you got to use that pressure for you. You got to use those nerves for you. And that's what I think is the most important thing, is like using that to drive you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's a guy I did mentoring with. His name's Tim Grover. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was the old weightlifting coach for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
And one thing he says is like, whenever you feel those butterflies, or like whatever the emotions or emotion that you're feeling, you just have to get it all to flow in one direction, basically. And that, because if you have all these different emotions, I mean, you can't have all these different emotions and still be in the zone, because that means you're probably thinking, and you can't really be thinking if you're in the zone. So that's kind of something that he says about it.
There's something also very cool. Mike Tyson's original trainer, the motto. I watched the interview and they mentioned something like, everybody's got that flame, but you kind of got to ignite it and become a roaring blaze. And that's kind of the same thing. It's like you got to channel that energy to ignite it in the right direction, because that energy can work against you too. You can deplete your energy levels if you use those butterflies to work against you. So you got to kind of channel it the right way.
Yeah, that's true. So like, as far as your mental training, what does that look like? I'm guessing you do visualization and stuff, right?
Yeah, I visualize a lot, like in my own time also. Like when I'm caught doing nothing, I'm visualizing, thinking of a fight. When I'm training and running, I'm visualizing, but also my downtime, I like to visualize and focus on the victory.
But what does the visualizing look like to you? Like, what are kind of like the steps that you do for an effective visualization?
Well, the man in the arena is the mindset all the time. The man in the arena, the man in the arena. So from that ring walk to the fight, I visualize that all the time. And how am I going to play it out? How's it going to play out in my head? My victory speech. I think about who am I going to thank, the road to get there. So I always constantly thinking about the victory. And then there's the fight. And I start thinking, I go back to my game plan. I think about, what's this guy going to throw at me? How am I going to evade it? And how am I going to beat him? And I role play that in my mind, because I almost like want to step out of the current time zone and put myself ahead 4 weeks time and visualize the victory. So that kind of stuff.
Do you do, or say like affirmations and things like that, or auto suggestions to yourself, or maybe like you write them down, things like that?
Yeah, affirmation for sure, especially like verbal affirmation. I talk to my friends and my wife a lot about like being positive and how I feel, but affirmations for sure. I also write them down. I've got a diary. I write things down, like my moods every day. If I go look at my training camp, I see like, this was a bad day, that was a good day. So I do write down a lot of things, and I have a vision board too. I put on my vision board a lot of things that I've ticked off, and I'll show the people one day my vision board. And my vision board is like everything I've wanted, I've achieved, and it's taken a long time, but there's always a way to get there. And I've got that vision board. So one thing on my vision board was becoming the world champion at heavyweight. So this is another step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting when you get that.
Yeah, it's hard work. Daniel Dubois is a tough fighter. He's a strong boy. But at the end of the day, the man who wants it most. So you're going to have to carry me out on a shield here, because I want it badly. And this is what my dream been, He's got the belt. I'm coming for everything. He's got everything to lose. I got nothing to lose.
Right.
That's
true. Yeah, and that's a dangerous man. You got nothing to lose, especially. Makes you more dangerous.
100%. And it's that underdog mentality. And a lot of people like always have seen, like, I've been overlooked my whole life in the sense of boxing, because I shouldn't be in this position, because I've had no amateur fights and I never had any experience. But we keep defying the odds, which shows the true character, which shows the character of the person I am.
Right.
That never give up attitude, that never give up, that no quit attitude, and that's the truth.
And also, I feel like you must believe in yourself a lot, and obviously your trainers do too. But there's a quote from Mike Tyson. He says, "But something like belief applied properly will supersede a genius." And basically, what he's saying by that is like, it doesn't matter like how smart you are if you don't believe in yourself, like you're not going to go anywhere. It's not going to matter.
Exactly. And that's what I think a lot of people lack is the self-belief. They got everything else. They got the talent, they got the genetics, they got the discipline, but they don't have self-belief. And without that self-belief, like you just quoted now, it's like null and void. It means nothing, no matter who you are, no matter what type of genius you are, no matter what physical freak you are. If you don't have that true self-belief, that inner self-belief, everybody can say, oh, I'm going to be a champion. You know deep down if you really want to be a champion.
Right. That's true. So do you have something? I know we have this in swimming. We kind of have something called a pre-race routine. Mine's like when I do, I like smack my chest and like I just get like really fired up. I jump, kind of like shake my arms out, and usually like I'll put my kind of like a power pose, put my hands on my hips, and sometimes I'll put one leg on the block. But I don't do the exact same thing every time. I kind of just do with what feels right in the moment. It's usually pretty similar, but I just do what I feel is right in the moment. But do you guys have something like that in boxing, kind of like a pre-fight routine or things like that?
Yeah, I think all guys do. I mean, I do. Obviously, it's different boxing, the warm-up and everything, but from the walk to the ring, I'm vocal. I'm talking to my teammates around me, my corner. I love talking to them. I psych myself up. I said, I swear and shit. I look at them. I say, we've got this far. He's not going to take the food off my table. He's not going to take the food off my table. And then there's a thing that JJ Watt said one game. It's like, all I know, you mess with me, you got problems. And I shout that, and my team starts shouting it. And we just, that's mine, because boxing is a very warrior-like sport, we're going to fight. So how do we hype ourselves up? We've got to talk ourselves up, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, self-talk, it's powerful, man. I remember some of my best swims when I'm standing behind the block. I'm doing like these Mike Tyson affirmations, like I'm a freaking god. These guys are scared. Like they're lucky that they even get the chance to race me. Like I don't know, just all this stuff to really get myself fired up and like I'm a freaking beast. And then I really sometimes if I really get going, I feel my adrenaline go like pretty fast. And then I always have my best swims when I did that. So it's powerful.
Of course, and also it's like that's self-belief. Because you're talking what you believe, Mike Tyson didn't just say that to scare people. He believed it. Right. He believed it. And that's the biggest thing is self-belief. Most important, number one.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember actually in one of Mike Tyson's podcasts, someone asked Mike this question. I'm curious on what your take is on it. So if you could fight anyone in history, who would you fight?
I'll tell you why it would be Mike Tyson. Let me tell you why. Because for me, he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, being a smaller heavyweight and a dynamic fighter. But I just would like to see how great he was. Yeah. Because I think seeing what he did is kind of one thing, but experiencing what that man could do, it's just like would blow me away. So he's a legend. So just experience that aura, that tenaciousness, that animal instinct that he brought to the table. I think it was scary. So I'd love to experience that. I wouldn't like to fight him, but I'd love to experience that. You know what I mean?
Like the ferocity that and like his aura and everything.
That aura he carried, that God mentality. I think you fight a man like that, it's different, So just to experience that, because he's a great.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to know what his answer is, or do you know what his answer was whenever he got asked that question?
I can't remember, but did he say Muhammad Ali?
No, he said Achilles. Achilles is the greatest warrior in history. He's like, if there was any one guy I could fight, it would be Achilles. He was the greatest warrior like in history to ever live. I thought that was a pretty cool answer.
Different, yeah. You don't expect that. That's
Yeah.
true.
But he's a big history like geek, I guess you want, whatever you want to call it. Like he knows his history really well with like all the fighters from whenever like it started, like however many BC, whatever it was, all the way up until now.
Yeah.
Like he knows his stuff. It's crazy.
He's proper wise. He's like a historian. He's got like his history book upstairs. You know, he's
Mm.
knows his history.
Yeah. Well, it's because his trainer Cuss used to have him study like all the great fighters from way back then, and then and actually I think I remember him saying this is like if you want to get like become the best or do really really well in any industry or any sport or whatever it is, he said you go back to the very beginning, look at everything they did, see the things that worked for them, and then just keep moving up the lineage and see like all the different things that worked for each era basically of like the greatest boxers, and then and like with their training and like their style, whatever it was, and then that's kind of how training progresses throughout the eras.
Sure, man. I agree. And like you've got to study a bit of everybody. So like I study a little bit of Mike Tyson, I study a bit of the other greats, Sugar Ray Leonard, Canelo. You've got to study everybody and take a little bit of something out of everybody to become your own person. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like Bruce Lee. He took all these different martial arts and combined it into his own form, which I believe is called Jeet Kune Do, right?
Okay. And
Have
I
you
know
heard?
Mark Tyson talks a lot about Bruce Lee as well.
Mm. Really? What did he say about Bruce Lee?
I can't remember exactly what he said in the podcast, but I think the question was put to him like, who would win in a fight, you or Bruce Lee?
That's funny.
And and then a lot of people are like, well, Mark would win, and then he was like, no, that guy was bad. That guy was a badass. His ways are very cool. So I think it's just like I know he used to study a lot of like previous fighters, Sonny Liston, Jack Dempsey,
Yeah.
those type of guys. He used to really focus on those guys. Sugar Ray Robinson, all those guys. I mean, I read his book and used to watch those guys as a youngster, and obviously Muhammad Ali.
Oh, you read his book as well?
Mark's Undisputed Truth, yeah.
Yeah, that was the last book I read. It's so good. I learned so much about myself.
Exactly, and it's also like you kind of like being a boxer, you kind of like put yourself in his shoes and you kind of almost can like sit and read that and feel what he was feeling, but not the same extent, but kind of like relate.
Yeah. I mean, even more than just from like a boxing standpoint, just the like he's gone. This is what I always tell people: is he's so wise because he's been at the very, very top, he's been at the very, very bottom, and like everywhere in between. So he's experienced probably everything that you're going to experience in your life to some degree, and probably more.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not just in sports; it's in like all walks of life. You can be a chartered accountant, you can be an elite athlete. You experience the high, you can experience the low too.
Right. And I feel like, and this goes for any sport, like the better of a person that you become, the better you're going to do in your sport. Obviously, there's like technique stuff that isn't necessarily related to you as a person, but in a sense, it kind of is too, because it's about your discipline and like your commitment to your craft.
For sure, 100%.
So what advice would you have to younger boxers like that are like coming up, or maybe they've already started like in their pro journey, but they're just on the start of it, or maybe it could be like little kids who see you or other boxers and like, oh, I want to be like this guy.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is stay patient, trust the process, and the process of boxing. The world of boxing is a very slow process. Back yourself, surround yourself with a good team, good trainers, people who have your interests at heart. Don't have yes men. Don't have people telling you what you want them to tell you. Have legit people who are going to correct you in life. Don't have hanger-oners. Don't have the leeches leeching off you. Surround yourself with your close friends and keep with those friends until you become a success, and stay with those friends even when you are a success. But also, the biggest thing for me, and the biggest, most important thing is patience in any sport. Boxing, have patience, because when your time comes, whether it's a big opportunity or a small opportunity, take it, because the small opportunity will lead to the big opportunity down the line. But if you don't take that opportunity when it comes, the big one's not going to come down the line. So having patience for each different opportunity you get.
I like that a lot.
Because every fight, like the fight of life's an opportunity to go for your first fight, second fight. Those are opportunities. Those opportunities can be taken away from you in an instant. So use every small opportunity. So basically every fight is your opportunity to get better for the big opportunity that lays ahead and will come down the line when the time is right.
That's awesome.
Biggest
I
thing.
love that. Awesome.
All right.
But what are your thoughts about what Jake Paul's doing in the boxing world? I'm curious.
Look, I mean, you know what I kind of like about the guy is he's training properly. He's not cutting corners, and he's a very motivated, dedicated guy. I actually know BJ Flores, who's his trainer. So the guy does train properly. He works really hard. And he has picked his fights right. I mean, he fought those MMA guys. He fought a previous MMA great, meaning Anderson Silva, who was a little bit longer in the tooth, a bit older, but he was still a great in the sense of in the MMA world. I think he had the longest title run as a champion, which was something ridiculous. So you got to respect that. So he's picked his opponents well in the sense of it's gonna create hype. Are the guys beatable? Yes, they are. When he comes up against a real legit fighter, like he's talking guys like, I'm not talking about Nate Diaz and those guys or Conor. I'm talking about he's saying Canelo Alvarez. That's like a true test, and only time will tell. And if he does get to that point, well done to him because he's navigated his career the correct way to get that opportunity. So the thing I respect most about him is he trains hard. He's trying to do it right. He's picking his fights right, which is okay. People are watching. He's doing what he needs to do. And he is proving people wrong from time and time again. Like a lot of people said he wouldn't beat Anderson Silva. I said he would, was without a doubt. I mean, Anderson Silva's an MMA great, but he is a lot older now. And Jake Paul is a young, hungry man who wants to become something in boxing. So take away his monetary value now and what he's earning in terms of revenue, because that's from his following. But as a boxer, he's still a novice. He's still a novice, but he wants to become successful in boxing. So I kind of respect that.
Yeah, I have the same kind of philosophy as you. Like, I think I love what Jake Paul's doing. Like, I think it's awesome. Like when I see someone who's kind of like an underdog and people are like hating on him, and then he just constantly is like proving people wrong. And just because, I mean, especially I feel like Jake Paul has probably gotten some of the most hate out of majority of like boxers that I've heard of, just because he has such like a big social media presence. And then when he's like picking his fights and stuff, obviously people are like, oh, why don't you fight like a real boxer? Or why don't you fight someone who's actually like around your age and not 50 or upper 40s and all this stuff? But he's so good at just blocking out all the noise, like you're saying, and just focusing on what his plan is.
You have to, man. I mean, I kind of like suffer a little bit with that in South Africa because there's a lot of like jealous people. So in terms of the boxing fraternity here, there's a lot of people who are jealous and haven't, like my last opponent, he fought Vladimir Klitschko. He fought Dillian White 2 years ago. And then guys are like, no, this guy's too old for Kevin. But 2 years ago, he took Dillian White the distance, the same guy who fought Tyson Fury for the world title. We keep proving people wrong. But, you know, you kind of have to have those haters because it does motivate you. And I don't care what anyone says, oh, they block out the haters. No, we all take note of it, man. Sometimes we take note of things people say, but it does motivate us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need haters. And when you have haters, that means a lot of times you're doing something right.
You're doing well. Because if you don't have haters, you're not relevant.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's a good point. So let's see, where was I going with this? I just had a question I was going to ask. Oh yeah. Did you have any like limiting beliefs that were slowing you down in the past that you've had to break, that you saw right away, like, oh man, ever since I guess knocked this limiting belief out, or this mental block or struggle, I noticed a huge increase in my performance?
Yes. When I fought for the world title at cruiserweight in 2017, I was very doubtful going into that fight. I wasn't sure if I could do it based on the opponent that I fought. He was a big guy, strong guy, Yuri Kalinga. He won Fight of the Year versus Masternak. He was a bull. And I took the bull to school. And I should have knocked him out. And after that fight, it was the turning point in my career. I was like, you are the shit. You need to believe in yourself. Because going into that fight, I was like, well, it is what it is. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. When I won, I was like, you can do this. You can do it properly. You need to back yourself. So that was a big turning point in my career, I must be honest.
Yes.
I really
So
what I could do.
So just like the self-belief basically was like the biggest thing?
It was, because boxing is a lot of it's about confidence, you know? And I wasn't confident, but when I beat him, my confidence grew because I actually realized what I could do. I always I wasn't sure. You know,
They brought out your best potential.
Yeah, you're never sure. You just kind of coast along until you really realize the why, and like, why I beat this guy, because I'm more superior skilled than him. And I'm going to go on to, you know, I haven't lost in 8 years, touch wood. So it has been a big part of my career.
That's awesome. So I have one more question for you, and then we just do like these. I ask this at the end of every podcast, like a little speed round thing of questions. There's 3 of them. But last question before that is, you got any call outs or anyone that you want to start some beef with or drama or anything in the boxing world?
I'm not the beef shit talking kind of guy, but
boom. You guys heard it here. Make sure you guys tune in to December 3rd to watch that fight and support Kev, because I want to see him kick everyone's butt or kick this guy's butt and all their fans. So I'm cheering for you, man.
Thank you, bro.
And yeah, so speed questions. They're supposed to be fast, but I know sometimes they can take a little bit of thought. But what's the best piece of advice that you've gotten that you feel has impacted you the most?
Block out the noise. Block out the noise. Cut the people out your life who aren't relevant and aren't important, and stay in your lane.
Yep, love it. And then what's your favorite quote and why?
Tough times don't last, tough people do.
That's a fire quote.
Tough times don't last. Tough times don't last, and tough people do, because it's my favorite quote, because everybody goes through some hardships in life, but we all get the opportunity to wake up the next day and to turn those hardships around. As long as you can stay tough and true to the ground, it's doable.
Yes, I love that. That's awesome. And then final question is, what is one book that you recommend everyone should read?
The Alchemist.
Oh, really? Wait, what is that about? I don't know if I've read that one. I've heard of it, but
you got to read it. You got to read it. It's really cool. It's about this. I don't want to give you too much detail, but it's kind of like, it makes you like realize like hard, humble beginnings and how things happen and fall into place for you. It's really cool.
That sounds
really
good.
cool. The Alchemist. Okay. It's not a thick book as well. It's like that thick. It's not too thick, so it's good for me.
Nice. But yeah, and I guess last thing is, where can people find you if they want to connect or support you or anything like that?
Sure, man. Obviously, the boxing world, Kevin Lerena. I'm not big on Facebook or Twitter and that, but I enjoy Instagram. I use Instagram to drive most of my social media. So you can get me on Instagram at Kevin Lerena. And you can support me on the 3rd of December, Tottenham Stadium, co-main event to Chisora and Tyson Fury against Daniel Dubois for the world title.
Awesome. And I'll put the link to your Instagram in the description so people, they can click on it and check you out and everything like that. So, but
epic, bro. Thank you. And thank you for having me. We need more people like you, positive energy, and I just enjoy that. So thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thanks for hopping on, man. It was awesome.